Hey guys, if you know me at all, you know that I am not a speaker. I am not one to get up and talk in front of older people especially. I can talk to little ones all day long, but this is definitely not my thing. And I have been terrified, scared to death about doing this, but when Mr. Jim said he could video it, there was no way of really getting out of it. I talked to David about it and I was like, what do I say? How do I get out of this? I can't do this. I can't do this. But we talked about it. I prayed about it. Prayed about it. And the Lord was just telling me that there's something that I can say that maybe might matter to someone. Because I struggled with, is there anything, am I worthy of saying anything that's going to matter? So, prayed about it, and the Lord kept sending me signs. I mean, Brother Josh said in his sermon Sunday, he talked about there can only be one you, and just be yourself, and that spoke to me. And then last night in our women's Bible study, we studied the Samaritan woman, and there were a lot of things said last night that kept telling me, okay, this is a sign, there's something that you need to say, you need to do this. So, if you don't hear anything else from this message, just hear the words, go to church. Go to church, get yourself in church somewhere. It doesn't have to be here, but we would love to have you here. And I say that because my mom always made sure that my sister and I were in church every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, and every Wednesday night. She made sure we were there when the church doors were open. We were there. It didn't matter what else was going on. And these days it seems like there's so many activities that happen during church time. And David and I have discussed that's something that we're not going to do. We're not going to allow our kids to be involved in something that takes away from church time. That's just our thing. That's what we decided we would do with our family. And we are not perfect by any means. I'm the least perfect person you will find. And we do things and we do not go to church like we should all the time. I'm not saying that. But just go to church. Get yourself in church. Surround yourself with good Christian people, and it will make a difference in your life. Because whatever you're going to go through, whatever you face in your life, you cannot face it alone, and you can't always have mom or dad or friends to help. You can search all over the place. You can search on Facebook. You can search through another person. You can search through material things, but you're never ever going to be satisfied until you find that there's peace with the Lord and ask Him into your heart and know that He will pick you up and He will carry you along the way, and you can overcome anything. Because I know that I have had a lot of anxiety about doing this and a lot of fears, but He is going to carry me through this, and without Him I could not have faced the things that I have gone through. But back to my mother, she made sure that we were in church all the time, and I was saved at the age of 10 years old. It was on a Sunday night, and I remember being scared to death to go down front, and I was holding on to the pew as hard as I could, and my heart was beating really fast, but the Lord just picked me up and carried me down the aisle pretty much. I couldn't hold back anymore. My heart was going to beat out of my chest, and so I had to go down, and I had to make it be known to everyone that I had asked Jesus into my heart and wanted to be baptized. With that being said, several years down the road, when I was 16 years old, I met a boy who I thought was the absolute best thing ever, and thought I was in love and thought that this was the person I was going to marry. And he This is something I've never really talked about to anybody except for my parents. So this is kind of, it's embarrassing. It makes me feel ashamed, but I was in a physically abusive relationship. He was very, very mean to me, and would do things that I should never let anybody do, said things to me that I should not have let him say to me, but I did, and I thought this was the person that I loved. Even though he did all these things, I kept wanting to see him and be with him, and one night I came home and I had blood all up my legs and gravel all in my clothes from where I had been drug out of a moving car. I was trying to leave his house, put it in reverse. He did not want me to leave, so he pulled me out of the vehicle while the car was still going. Then he jumps in to put on the brakes and put it in park, and I am just beat up, drugged down the driveway. And I go home, cry all the way home. I go home to my parents, and needless to say, a restraining order was placed on him, and I knew that my daddy might do some things that we would all regret, so I knew I had to leave this guy alone. But I also knew in the back of my mind this was not the person that I was supposed to be with. This is not who God intended me to be with for the rest of my life. So I prayed and I prayed and I prayed about how do I get out of this situation, because he was one of those people who would just find me anywhere. Even after there was no restraining order anymore, I went off to college and he turns up in the parking lot. And one night it was bid day and I had joined a sorority, and he was there in the parking lot, and I had all my balloons, flowers, I was excited, and he sees me and he grabs it out of my hand, throws the flowers everywhere, busts the balloons, I mean just takes everything. He was so angry at the fact that I had chose to do this and have friends. He didn't want me to have any friends. He always got angry when I chose to do other things without him or with someone else. And I just felt like he was never going to leave me alone. And I didn't know what to do but pray about it. He enrolled in classes at Martin, and so I would see him on campus. He would find me walking to and from class, and it was like he was everywhere. Everywhere I turned, he was there, and he just followed me around. And I just prayed, Lord, please, just let him go on his way and leave me alone, and I have to get out of this situation. This is not for me. He is not a good person, and I prayed for him because he really, really needed it. Eventually, I stopped answering all his phone calls, because that was one mistake of mine. I would answer the phone when he called me, which I should not have done. But finally, the Lord gave me strength to just stop. Stop answering his phone calls. Don't talk to him when I see him out, and eventually he left me alone. By the grace of God, I was able to get out of that situation. Now, a few years later down the road, I meet another boy by the name of David Thomas, who I knew a little bit about, but I didn't really know him. We had some classes together. He would sit beside me. He would ask to cheat off me. He would always aggravate me. And I would think, what in the world? Why won't he just go on? Because at first I wasn't really talking to him. I wouldn't give him the time of day. And then, the more he hung around, the more he grew on me. And we started riding to class together. We would have some things to do at Martin Primary, and he asked if I wanted to ride with him, so I would ride with him. We kind of developed a friendship. And then, right when he graduated college, he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I knew this about him, but after he graduated, I didn't really see him as often. And then he was gone to Vanderbilt. He had to stay at Vanderbilt for several months. But he got better, and that is by the grace of God, none other than God, who healed him and allowed him to get through that. And then all of a sudden we both were hired to teach here at Bruceton. And he would kind of come to my classroom every now and then, kind of send messages by the kids. My mom was a substitute also, and he got her on his side. And so we developed an even bigger friendship, which turned into a relationship. Ended up getting married, which was one of the best days of my life. But I knew that because he had had cancer, that there was a chance that we may not have kids of our own. And I had wanted to be a mom ever since I was a little bitty girl. I wanted to be a mama, to have my own kids, but we knew that that may not be an option for us. We had discussed that. He told me that. The doctors had told him that more than likely he wouldn't have kids. And I knew what I was in for. So we talked about adoption and how we might do that. But 2 years after we were married, on the day of Relay for Life, we found out we were pregnant. And being that it was Relay for Life, I don't think it was a coincidence. I think that was God. I know that was God. And he allowed us to have a child of our own. So we were blessed, very, very blessed, to be having a baby. But I go into one of my checkups, about 5 months in, I was told we needed to meet with the anesthesiologist, and he told me that I would not be able to have an epidural because of my heart condition, and I was like, oh geez, what now? But then the more David and I talked about it, and he encouraged me, and I knew the Lord was going to be with me through the whole thing, so I wasn't scared. Tried not to be scared. But we get to almost the very end, and I had really high blood pressure a lot of the time. I ended up developing preeclampsia and going to have this baby, and they try to induce, and his heart rate starts dropping, his oxygen levels start dropping. So they take out the Cervidil that they use to induce, and we realize that he's going to come on his own. We'll just let him come on his own. We need to, God's timing, we'll just let him go on God's timing, and he will be here. Needless to say, it was a very, very rough, painful delivery, but because of the heart condition that I had, they did not want me to push, or any kind of exertion was not what they wanted me to go through. So I was laying there on the hospital bed, and my mom and my sister and David were in the room, and I remember that everything kind of went black, and the words to "How Great Thou Art" start playing in my head. And the only way that I was able to get through that delivery was God. And I knew that those words to that song was not just something that I was thinking up. Like, God was doing this. He was picking me up. He was carrying me through. He was going to get me through this. I was going to get through it. We were going to do this. We were going to have this baby. And we did. We did. Now, 4 years later, we were pregnant with another little baby girl, our miracle number 2, because David was not really supposed to have any kids, they didn't think. And I was told it was not a good idea for me to have kids. Well, we're pregnant with baby number 2. It was a little bit better experience, but after she was born that night, I had to stay in the critical care unit by myself all night long. I was not able to hold her, feed her, see her, touch her, kiss her. I was alone, and in in the critical care unit, I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. Dear Lord, if you just get me through this, this is it. We're done having babies. We've got two miracle babies, and this is it. We're done. Now, my most recent experience leads me to the day that Seth Thomas walked in the house screaming, crying, and blood running down his face. It was an experience that I hope I never, ever, ever go through, and I never feel like I felt in that moment ever again. It scared me, terrified me, and I didn't know what was going on, and I absolutely lost it. And David can handle situations like that a lot better than I can. So he told me that he was going to take Seth to the emergency room, and that's what he did, and I stayed at home with Sadie. And so he takes Seth, because Seth at this time had thrown a glass bottle against a tree, and it broke, and a piece of glass came right back in his eye and cut his eye right down the middle. And I thought his eye was gone. He was going to be blind. He might lose his eye. Those beautiful blue eyes with that baby that I gave birth to, they were no longer going to be something that I would see ever again. I just felt like he was going to lose his eye, he was going to lose his sight. But David takes him to the emergency room in Paris. He calls me and tells me that he's going to be life flighted to Vanderbilt. And I can't get there fast enough. I cannot drive. There's no way I could have driven there. So David's parents were going to come get me and take me to Vanderbilt. I left Sadie with my parents, but before that, the only thing I knew to do was to get down on... Okay. So I prayed like I had never prayed before. I got down on my knees, Sadie Joe right beside me, and we prayed and prayed and prayed. And we cried and we cried and we cried. She didn't really know what was going on at the time. She just saw me, so she was doing the same thing. But we prayed and prayed. Dear Lord, please, please get him through this. Give us the strength to get through this. All of us. Give us the strength to get through this. And so David's parents come pick me up. We try to get to Vanderbilt. We get to the interstate and there is a wreck. The traffic is backed up in both directions. Nobody was moving. And I thought, how in the world am I going to get to my baby? How in the world? I cannot get there fast enough already. So we had to take a different route, which took quite a bit longer, but we made it. And I make it to the hospital, the emergency room at Vanderbilt, and I am able to get in and see my little baby boy, who is 9 years old now, but to me, in that hospital room, he was back in my arms as a brand new newborn baby, and I lost it again. I lost it because he's laying there. He has a big patch over his eye. His eyes are closed. He can't see me. He can talk to me, but he can't see me. And I thought, this is how it's going to be for the rest of his life. And I knew if it was, that's okay. We're gonna deal with it. We're gonna handle it. With God, we're gonna be able to get through anything. But I had to remind myself of that all the time. And this was one of those times where I was saying, dear Lord, please help us get through it. I know you can. I know you will. If he's not going to have his sight, we're going to make it work. We're going to overcome it. The Mandisa song, Overcomer, is one of my favorite songs, and I try to play that in the classroom in the mornings. When the kids are coming in, we listen to the Mandisa Good Morning song, and we listen to Overcomer because it has a great message. But we were going to overcome this no matter what it took, whatever life's going to throw at us, we're going to overcome it. But the only way I know that can happen is with God. The only way. So, needless to say, another song was playing in my mind, another hymn. And as I sat there with Seth, I just sang that song to him. I sang and sang and sang. And I knew this was God talking to us. This was God talking to us and telling us it was going to be okay. We were going to be fine. And now he is. He's okay. We've gone back. He's had a few surgeries. We still have to go back later on. We're not completely done. He can't really see very well, but we're hoping that when the next little part that we go back for, she's going to do a laser procedure and finish up what she didn't get off, and hopefully after that his sight will be better. If not, that's okay. That's okay. He will wear a contact in that eye, and he will carry on, because he will have a great, great testimony one of these days when he is able to talk about it, because he and I both know there's no way that we could have gotten through this without relying on God. And I just want you all to know that you're not going to find answers in anybody or anything except God. You can search for it and search for it and search for it, but you're not going to find it anywhere until you get yourself in church. Go to church and just rely on Him. Know that He is going to help you overcome. He will pick you up and He will carry you the rest of the way. There is nothing He can't do. And I just want y'all to know that David and I and our family love you all, and we're praying for you all. And we'll continue to pray for you every day of our lives. We love you.